The briefing room smells like cold coffee and tension. You have been in enough of these rooms to know the difference between a routine mission briefing and one that changes the temperature of the air the moment the classified folder hits the table. This one changes the temperature. The commander doesn't waste time on pleasantries. He places a satellite photograph on the table, taps it once with 2 fingers, and looks around the room at the 6 of you with an expression that communicates everything before a single word is spoken. There is an enemy vessel anchored in a harbor 3 nautical miles off a coastline that does not officially know you are coming. The vessel is carrying weapons that cannot be allowed to reach their destination. Your team has been selected to place demolition charges on the hull below the waterline. Get clear and let the charges do what charges do. The window is narrow, 6 hours of darkness, a tide schedule that gives you one viable approach, and an enemy patrol pattern that has been observed for 4 days and is consistent enough to exploit but unpredictable enough to respect. You study the photograph. You study the charts. You ask 3 questions, receive 2 complete answers, and 1 answer that amounts to "we don't know," which is the answer you were expecting and the one that always sits heaviest. The unknown is where missions go wrong. Every diver in this room knows that. You factor it in, you plan around it, you accept that it exists, and then you move forward anyway because moving forward is the job. Mission brief ends. You have 4 hours before insertion. Your gear is already laid out when you return to the equipment room, but you check it anyway. You check it because checking it is not optional, not a formality, not something you do for appearances. In the water, at depth, in the dark, on a timeline with enemy sentries 40 meters above your head, equipment failure is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence. And the difference between equipment that fails and equipment that holds is the 30 minutes you spend right now going over every single component with the same focused attention you gave it the last time and the time before that. Your rebreather is first. Unlike the open-circuit scuba systems that produce a stream of bubbles visible on the surface, bubbles that would announce your presence to any alert sentry looking down from the deck of the target vessel, your closed-circuit rebreather recycles your exhaled breath through a chemical scrubber that removes carbon dioxide and replenishes oxygen. No bubbles, no trace on the surface. You move through the water as invisibly as water itself. You check the oxygen cylinder pressure. You check the scrubber canister. If the carbon dioxide scrubbing chemical is exhausted or compromised, the result is hypercapnia, a rapid buildup of CO2 in your bloodstream that produces headache, confusion, and unconsciousness in that order. And the order moves faster than you would believe if you hadn't been trained on it. You check the mouthpiece seal, the counterlung integrity, the dive computer. You check everything twice. Your dive partner, a man named Reeves, who has been on 6 missions with you and whose competence you trust with the same quiet certainty you trust your own heartbeat, checks it again after you. Your wetsuit is 7 millimeters of neoprene, which will keep your core temperature viable for the duration of the dive but will not make you comfortable. Comfortable and alive are different categories in this work, and you stopped confusing them a long time ago. Your fins are long-blade freediving fins rather than the standard, shorter military fins. They sacrifice maneuverability for propulsion efficiency, covering more distance per kick with less energy expenditure, which over a 3 nautical mile approach matters considerably. Your dive knife is strapped to your right calf. Not for combat. If it comes to combat underwater, you are already in a situation that the knife will not resolve in your favor. The knife is for entanglement. Fishing nets, mooring lines, kelp, debris. The underwater world around a working harbor is full of things that catch and hold, and the knife is what separates entanglement from drowning. The demolition charges are waterproof magnetic limpet mines, each one capable of tearing a hole in steel plate below the waterline large enough to ensure the vessel cannot be saved. You carry 4 between the 2 of you, distributed across your equipment harness. They are armed with timers. The timers will be set during placement. You run the placement sequence in your head one more time, not because you don't know it, but because in the water, in the dark, with adrenaline narrowing your focus to the immediate, the things you have rehearsed until they are automatic are the things that actually get done correctly. The team assembles at the water's edge at 2200 hours. Nobody speaks. There is nothing left to say. The briefing has been had. The gear is checked. The plan is as solid as plans get when they involve the word unknown. You pull your mask down, take the rebreather mouthpiece between your teeth, and you step into the black water. Cold hits you like a physical argument. 7 millimeters of neoprene does its job. Your skin registers the temperature, your core does not yet. But the shock of the initial immersion is always the same regardless of how many times you have done this. Your body spends 2 seconds making its objections known and then quiets down as the wetsuit does its work and you begin to move. You descend to 8 meters. At this depth, you are invisible from the surface. Even with the harbor's working lights reflecting off the water above, nothing penetrates 8 meters of dark water with enough clarity to resolve a diver moving slowly against the bottom. You are effectively non-existent. This is the best feeling in the world and one of the most dangerous at the same time, because invisibility creates a specific kind of overconfidence that you have been trained to resist. Navigation underwater at night with no external reference points is one of the most technically demanding skills in the diving repertoire. You cannot see more than a few feet in any direction. The harbor bottom below you is a vague, dark shape. Above you is the faint, diffuse glow of surface lights that tells you which way is up and nothing else. Your compass is mounted on your wrist, and you swim the bearing you memorized in the briefing room, counting kick cycles to track distance, cross-referencing with the dive computer's depth readout to confirm you are staying on the planned approach profile. Reeves is 2 meters to your right. You cannot see him, but you can feel the slight current disturbance of his movement in the water, a peripheral awareness that years of diving together have made automatic. You know where he is, the way you know where your own arm is. Not by looking, but by a kind of spatial sense that the body develops when it has spent enough time in close proximity to another person under conditions where losing track of each other has catastrophic consequences. 20 minutes into the approach and the first variable appears. There is a mooring line, not on the charts, freshly deployed from what feels like a small workboat anchored somewhere above you. It materializes out of the dark as a thick rope dropping vertically from the surface trailing across your path. You stop. Reeves stops. You assess. Going around adds time you can absorb. Going over it risks surfacing too close to the workboat. You go around, adding 4 minutes to the approach. 4 minutes is noted. 4 minutes is factored into the timeline. You keep moving. The hull of the target vessel appears above you gradually, a dark mass that grows from a vague shape into something vast and solid as you close the distance. The steel plates of the hull extend down from the waterline into the dark below you, barnacle-encrusted, cold, absolutely indifferent to your presence. You flatten your ascent profile and come up along the hull slowly, rising to 3 meters depth, close enough now that you are working in the acoustic shadow of the vessel. Any sound the ship itself is making masks the faint noise of your movement. Above your head, 40 meters of steel, and then a deck with men on it. You can hear faintly through the water footsteps, a muffled conversation, the deep mechanical rhythm of a generator running somewhere in the vessel's engineering spaces. These sounds, conducted through the hull and into the water, create a kind of intimacy with the enemy that is profoundly strange. You are close enough to hear their ship breathing, and they have no idea you exist. This is the part that requires everything you have. The charges are placed at specific points along the hull, structural weaknesses identified from the vessel's known design, locations where detonation will cause maximum flooding with minimum forewarning. You know these locations by coordinate. Finding them on the actual hull, in the dark, by touch, is a different challenge entirely. You work by feel. Your gloved hands move across the steel plates methodically, reading the surface of the hull the way a blind man reads a face. The rivets, the weld seams, the curves where one structural section meets another. The hull is cold enough that even through neoprene gloves the temperature seeps into your fingertips after a while, reducing sensitivity. You work faster, maintaining precision, balancing the two. The first charge seats against the hull with a magnetic clunk that sounds, to you, impossibly loud. In reality, the sound is absorbed by the water within 2 meters. Nobody above hears it. You know this. Your heart rate disagrees with you, but your training overrides your heart rate, and you move to the timer, set it, confirm the setting, move to the second placement point. Reeves is working the aft charges simultaneously. You cannot see him, but the operation is synchronized. You have rehearsed this sequence enough times that you are both working to the same internal clock, and the knowledge that he is doing his part with the same focused competence he always brings is a specific kind of reassurance that you cannot manufacture from anything except shared experience. The second charge seats. Third. Fourth. 45 seconds ahead of your planned timeline. In this work, 45 seconds early is a gift. You begin your withdrawal immediately. Going out is harder than going in. Not physically. The swim is the same distance in reverse. Harder because the mission has been executed and your mind, which has been held in a state of absolute focused calm for the past 90 minutes, is beginning to release. The adrenaline that was your ally during the approach and placement is now starting to process through your system in a way that makes your hands want to shake and your breathing want to speed up. You control both. You breathe on the rebreather at the same measured rate you have maintained throughout. You kick at the same pace. You hold the compass bearing. Discipline after the mission is as important as discipline during it. More people are caught on withdrawal than on approach. The tendency to feel that the hard part is over, to move a little faster than necessary, to cut a corner on the navigation, to let the relief of completion relax the vigilance that kept you alive during the penetration. This tendency is something you address actively, deliberately, every stroke of the way back. 15 minutes into the withdrawal, Reeves taps your arm twice. You stop. He points upward. You look. Above you, perhaps 20 meters of water between your position and the surface, a boat is moving. A harbor patrol vessel running slowly along a search pattern that was not part of the observed routine in the briefing. The unknown. Here it is, the thing that the commander said we don't know about, materialized at the worst possible moment. You sink to 12 meters and hold position. The patrol boat moves overhead. You can see its running lights as blurred smears of color through the water above, can hear the prop wash as a low mechanical thrum. It moves at patrol speed. It does not stop. It does not illuminate the water. It passes, and its sound fades, and you give it 3 full minutes after the sound is completely gone, before you begin to ascend again. 3 minutes in the dark at 12 meters, holding absolutely still, listening to the sound of a boat decide whether or not your existence tonight gets complicated. This is a kind of patience that cannot be taught in a classroom. It is built in moments exactly like this one, where the alternative to patience is a decision that ends everything. The boat does not return. You resume your withdrawal. You break the surface 200 meters from the extraction point, exactly on bearing, inside your revised timeline. The sky is still dark. The harbor behind you is still lit, still working, still completely unaware. You pull the rebreather mouthpiece free and take your first breath of actual open air in 2 hours, and it hits your lungs with a rawness that is almost painful and completely wonderful. Reeves surfaces beside you 30 seconds later. You look at each other. No words. There is a sound discipline protocol in effect until you are back in the extraction vessel and clear of the operational area. But the look is sufficient. It says everything that the debrief will spend an hour articulating. It went correctly. We are here. It is done. The extraction vessel is a rigid, inflatable boat with a blacked-out silhouette, engine at idle, sitting exactly where it should be, with 2 team members aboard who have been watching the water for your approach. You pull yourself over the gunwale and the boat is moving before you are fully aboard, turning away from the harbor at low speed, no wake, no noise beyond the minimum the engine requires. You lie on your back on the deck of the boat and stare at the sky. The stars are extraordinary out here. No light pollution, no cloud, just the full depth of a clear night sky, doing what clear night skies do when you finally have a moment to look at them. Your body is unwinding from 2 hours of held tension in a way that feels almost cellular. Every muscle simultaneously releasing something it has been gripping since you stepped off that shore. Behind you, approximately 3 nautical miles back, 4 charges are counting down on 4 separate timers, each set to the same detonation window. You will not hear them from this distance. You will see them, a brief muted light on the horizon, more felt than seen, followed eventually by a low concussion that the water carries farther than the air does. You don't watch for it. You keep your eyes on the sky. The debrief takes 90 minutes. Every detail of the mission is extracted systematically. Approach timeline, any deviations and their causes, placement sequence, the patrol boat, the withdrawal, the extraction. Everything is documented. Everything is analyzed. Not to assign blame for what went wrong. Nothing went wrong tonight, not fatally, but to extract every piece of operational knowledge that can be learned from the experience and applied to the next mission. In this work, learning is survival. Every debrief makes the next mission marginally safer. Marginally is enough, compounded over a career. The commander listens to the full report without interrupting. At the end, he nods once and says, "Good work." In this environment, from this man, good work is the highest available praise, and everyone in the room knows it. You accept it with a single nod in return, drink the mug of tea that has appeared in front of you at some point during the debrief, and feel the specific quiet satisfaction of a man who went somewhere dark and dangerous and invisible and did exactly what he was sent to do and came back. Tomorrow there will be another briefing room, another photograph on another table, Another unknown factor that the commander will acknowledge with the same frank honesty. Another stretch of black water between the shore and an objective. You will be there. Gear checked twice, compass bearing memorized, rebreather sealed and silent. Ready to become invisible again? This is the job. This is your life. And there is nothing else in the world you would rather be doing.